There, this is Art and Such with part 1 of my Rainbow Loom tutorial for the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz. For this pattern, you're going to need about half of a pack, about 300 gray bands or silver bands. The silver tend to be a little springier, so I would recommend gray. You'll need a couple of beads for the eyes and a Sharpie to draw the pupil in, or you can use bands. I haven't tried that out, so I'm not quite sure how that would turn out. You're going to need a red band, a single red, if you want to add the mouth after. And we're going to need a hook and a holding hook, and your loom in the offset position. So to start, I'm going to try and do these in the order from which we'll be placing everything on, but in reverse, so that it's easier for you to get to things. You should be able to put everything in the same hook if you want. We are going to start with the side extensions. This is similar to my groove pattern, which I just put on. We have 5 sets of double or 2 gray bands coming down the loom. You can start it anywhere so long as you have enough space. And now, leaving the first peg alone, we're going to come down diagonally with another set of 2 gray bands. We're doing this from each of the other pegs. And these loops are going to latch onto our body and act as capping bands, so they're kind of cool. Right, like so. And we're going to loop up by going underneath this first sideways band, and we're just going to pull up the bands on the side and bring them around to the next peg. We'll continue to do this, just grabbing the bottom 2 all the way up. We don't do anything to the side bands right now. And once you have this all looped up, you can take it off of your loom, put it on your hook or on the side, and make a second one of these. I'll get you to just pause and get that ready. Next, we will make our arms. They're pretty fast. We can do those. Again, I have one ready, so you'll be making one on your own, and we'll make one together. I'm taking 2 gray bands. I'm wrapping them twice around my hook, and this is going to come onto 6 pairs, 6 double gray bands. Oops, I lost them. Let's try that again. Have to make sure you get a little bit of tension there. Even it out a little bit. The reason I'm doing 2 at the end is to give it a little bit of added thickness, but 1 band at the end will work just fine as well. I wanted him to have kind of bigger arms. And this is our 4th pair. 5 and 6, and then I'll ask you to put this to the side and make 1 more. This can go right on the hook after your extensions. And then we're going to do our legs. Our legs get a little bit trickier, but they aren't that bad. You can start at the top of your loom. I'm actually going to come down 6 pegs, and this way I can go right to the bottom. We want 7 sets of double gray bands coming down the side, on either side really, but for simplicity's sake I'm just going to do the one closest to me. And these are all, we have 2 bands on each of these sets of pegs. We're going to repeat this on the middle row next to it, starting 1 peg above. So we should have 7 sets of 2 bands on this next row as well. And we are going to be taking singles all the way down, excluding the first 2 pegs. We'll be taking single grays, twisting them onto themselves so it's nice and tight, and bringing this across like so. We're going to repeat that all the way to the bottom, including the bottom one. Twist it on itself and pop it on top. Now we want a little bit of a shoe point. You can make this longer if you want by adding another set or 2, but what I'm going to do is same thing as the arms, 2 grays, wrap it 2 or 3 times onto the hook. I'm just doing it twice here, and we're going to put that onto another 2 grays, bring the other end back onto the hook, and place this on the bottommost side peg. Make sure we've got all of those on. We dig underneath this new cap, and we're going to take the first 2 bands back to the center. Let's pull these down so I can see them. Okay, so the first 2 have gone back upwards diagonally. And then you can go under either row, and we're going to loop straight upwards and push back all of those diagonal bands. And when you get to the top where you run out of bands, just leave it there for the moment. We will be taking these off and onto our hook, but we have to finish off this first row. Come back under your shoe, grab the remaining 2 bands, and put them onto the peg above. Now we're going to loop up this closer side. At this point, we can take our hook and slide it under the bands on each of those 2 top pegs. Remove it from our loom. You can give it a little tug and a straighten as you need. So now, once you've paused and got caught up here, you'll have two legs with feet, 2 wobbly, wonky extensions, and 2 arms. We're going to make our hats, and that's going to be the last thing we're using. But okay, no, that's the first thing we're using, so this works out well. We're going to take a single, wrap it about 3 or 4 times onto the hook. You can decide how tight and pointy you'd like it to be. We'll pull this onto 2 doubled over singles. So there's 1. I always forget this hook. It's a little bit thicker. The bands tend to jump off a bit more. But I'm trying to keep my pieces in better order here. We are going to put it onto a second doubled over single gray band. And then we're ready to come back to our loom here. We have, just make sure I've got this right for you, 1 set of double gray bands on either side coming down from the top, and 2 sets of double gray bands down the center. And I'll pull this off to show you in just a minute. We're going to bring bands, 2 bands from our second side peg to our third middle peg. The same on the other side. We place this top part, this nub that we just made, onto that last third peg on the center. You can kind of turn it straight here. and we need a doubled over single band to cap it off. This is coming from our second peg to our second peg and being pulled above the second peg on the center. So now we're ready to loop this part up, and you're going to pull back the cap band. You're going to look for your top two bands and reach inside and pull them up and forward and over to the side that they came from. In my case, it's the right side. Go back in again and bring your next two to the left. Just make sure we've got the right ones here. It's a little tricky to see sometimes when you're working with the same color. So if you need to pull it out to the side to get a better view, that's quite all right. It'll make everything a little bit neater at the end if you've got them and going back to the right places. There. And reach in one more time, get your two remaining bands, and you're going to bring them forward upwards, and then you can loop up on each of the remaining rows. And just go for your bottom two bands. And last one. And these can go onto a holding hook now. And the way to transfer it is to take your hook and pull it through the bands on the far side, on the middle, and on the near side, and carefully remove. You can kind of straighten it out here. So put this on the holding hook and put it to the side. We'll be adding that on when we make our head. Next up, we need our nose, and this we're going to do on the hook. You take a single gray, wrap it nice and tight, 1, 2, 3, 4 times. You can do it a little tighter if you want to. Take a single, stretch it, twist it, double it over, pull your wrapped band on top, and repeat with one more doubled over single. And this can all go onto a single gray. And just leave it loose, pull it over. And this will probably hold together just fine on its own, or you can leave it on a holding hook, that's fine. This is for the nose. And put that on the side, please. And we can make the eyes. Now if you're using bands, what you can do is take two singles, wrap them on your hook 1, 2, 3 times, and 1, 2, 3 times using the color of your choice, and pull them both onto a single gray. If you have beads with a larger hole, you can put them onto your hook and transfer them both directly onto a gray band. If you have beads with a smaller hole, we can use a method from Kate Schultz's channel, Isalicious Designs, and that is to use some dental floss or a thin wire or some really thin thread with a beading needle, and run it through both of your beads through a single gray, and then you take your thread back around and bring it back through the beads from the opposite direction. I'm going to try and grab that through, and the other one. And you sort of pinch it and pull until it's in the middle of your gray. You can set this aside or put it on the holding band, and we will have that ready for when we do our face. Hi there, this is Art and Such with part 2 of my Rainbow Loom tutorial for the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz. We have our hat ready, our eyes, our nose, our arms, our legs, and our side extensions ready, so we can begin with our body layout. On your loom, still offset position, we are going to take 2 bands, and these are all gray of course, 2 bands from the top peg on the center to the top peg on the side, and from the top peg on the center to the top peg on the other side, another 2. We have 3 sets of 2 bands coming down either side, and 4 sets down the center. Then we're going to come from our 4th peg on either side to the 5th peg on the center. 2 sets from each direction. I'm using 3 bands for the neck. You can use 2 or 3. This goes from your 5th peg down to your 6th peg down. And to create the shoulders, what we're going to do is add 2 bands from your 6th peg on the center to your 5th peg on the side, and coming up to the other side, same thing. We can make it a little bit longer by taking a band, wrapping it onto the hook. You can do it 3 times, 4 times, it depends how loose your band is, how tight your band is. And I'm going to put this onto 2 singles. Here we go. I have to try to remember to turn this a certain way for this particular hook. Keep grabbing the wrong one here. And we're going to stick this on the end of this peg, of this 5th peg down, where we've just placed our band coming from the 6th peg in the center. I know I'm reiterating a lot, but I don't know quite how well you can see this, or just if you're like me and you'd rather listen than watch sometimes. I'm going to do the same on the other side. Wrap a single around the hook a couple times till it's a little bit tight. I'm going to pull this onto 2 more bands, so double bands here. And this comes on the other side, 5th peg down on the other side. You don't have to have the collars, but I try and get the details for you when I can. Alright, we are ready to come from our 6th peg in the center down to our 6th peg on the side with 2 more grays. And we come down the side 5 times with sets of 2. This brings you up to your 3rd peg from the bottom. We repeat this all on the other side. Come down from the center 6th to the side 6th, and 5 pairs of gray. In the middle, we're going to have 6 pairs of gray coming down. This brings you to your 2nd last peg from the bottom. When you're ready to start attaching things, we're going to throw our arms on. And the 6th peg down, it's right under that collar piece where we have our shoulders. If you prefer to put the limbs on after the extension, you do have that option, but I think we're just going to go ahead here, put our other arm on. Give it a little tag, straighten it out. Next, our hat, so that's the next thing I've got on my hook. We're going to place this, we're going to look, we have 3 sets of 4 bands, and each of those sets is going to go on the corresponding top peg. So first 3 onto the first peg, sorry, first of the 3 sets of 4. And the second set is going to go onto the middle. If you can, you want to get them from the same direction. So if you're putting them on kind of bottom ways, with your hook pointing down, then that's the way you're going to do it for all of them. And the idea is that this should keep it from getting too twisted. But it can be a little bit tricky, so take your time at this and pause the video if you need. I'm just gonna bring this closer to me for a second, sorry. I have a couple pieces slipping here, I don't want that, so let's make sure we get this right. Well, this is always the hardest part for me. And there we go. This one missed. Okay. So there we go. We have 4 bands on this top side one, 4 bands on the top center, 4 bands on the other side. We can add our legs, and the legs are going to come from this 3rd peg from the bottom where we finished our gray. We'll take half of these bands, so 4 of them, put them here, and the others will come onto the next one there in the center. I'm going to try and slide it on kind of backwards upside down off my hook. Really important that you get all those bands. So if you're losing them like I keep doing, it's going to be messy. Really take your time. As I said, can be a little bit tricky. And use your fingers if you need to as well. That's what I'm going to do here, I think. There we go. And just check that your foot is pointing the direction that you like. If not, you might need to turn it all over. We're going to put on the other leg. So I'm pointing my hook down the first time, and then I like to try to point it up or the opposite direction when I get to the next piece. There we go. So our legs are on. They're connecting the bottom band, the third from the bottom on the side, to the second from the bottom peg, the center. We need a cap band over that. So this is the second peg on the center. We're just going to do it 2 or 3 times. So we don't want it so loose that it comes off, but we will need to get under there and it's tricky. So that's what we need. We're going to put our extensions on. So you take the piece that's on the hook, and this goes right over the arm. Try and push it down a little if you can. And for each of the sets of loops, we'll be pulling them onto the peg which is underneath, and then to the one in the center. So it goes to the one underneath into the center. We get our next set. And try to grab the right ones if you can. It's a little tricky sometimes, but the closer you are to the right ones, the better it'll look. So once more, each of the rings sticking out has been pulled down to the peg underneath and the peg upwards to the center. You can repeat this on the other side. You can even kind of tug your loops out first if that makes it easier. We're going to put this onto the arm piece, push it down a little. I'll try and get this ready here. Okay. We need our face put together, so we're going to put our eyes from the second band from the top to the second band from the top. So it's on the sides. Separate your eyes like oh, actually, let's add one more touch here. This is something Schultz does in her channel is Delicious, which is just brilliant. We're going to take a single band and twist it around, place it from the second to the second. And this will give some support to our eyes. And then we can bring them on, put it on our second peg, across to our second peg. And then we're ready to pull the eyes apart, get our band in between, our hook in between the bands, and pull one of those up and over the center second band, like so. Our nose can come across from the same peg to the same peg. It's the second one again. And if you'd like it to be a little bit stiffer, a little lower, what we're going to do is bring it under the third peg. And we need a capping band across here. This is our fourth peg down to our fourth peg down, brought up in the triangle formation, and we'll put one more right over the nose. Okay, this looks good. I will see you back for part 3, where we can loop this all up and put it all together. Hi there, this is Art and Such with part 3 of my Rainbow Loom tutorial for the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz. In part 2, we put all of our body pieces together and we got the layout ready. So just quickly check that you have your hat, your eyes, your nose, your cap bands on the face, your collar pieces, your arms, legs, side extensions, and a cap on the bottom. Then we're ready to start. I've actually jumped ahead a little bit here, sorry guys. But what you're going to do next is take your band on that 5th peg down on the side, come under your cap piece, and return the band from underneath to that center 6th. And the same on this side, you'll reach underneath, get under that little lump piece there, pull your bands up and bring them back to the center. push it down as best you can. And when you get to the bottom, we're reaching under the cap, taking the first 2 bands to the far side. Sorry, the first 4 bands that came from the leg, they're going back, and the others, the next 4, come to the side. This is my second take on this video. It was a little hard to get the pieces back because they are very tricky. You have a lot of bands here, so take your time and just be sure that you're getting the first top 4 here from under your cap, the next top 4 to the other side. And then we can take the last 2 and loop them up. If you need to pause a minute, take your time, make sure you get that. We're going to loop up the center a ways. We'll stop just at the piece where just before the piece where our collar is. And what we're doing is pushing all the bands back and just taking the bottom 2 as usual. Okay, we can stop here or at this one, either is fine as long as we remember to loop it up after. We'll go down to the side, push all the bands back. It's a little tricky here too, but we need only the bottom 2 bands. We're going to lift those upwards and push back our extensions again just to get the bottom 2. This goes right up to the arm. And then we can bring that in to meet at the shoulder. If you see that you're only grabbing 1 band, you can always go back and get the other. You want to do that so that you don't have an extra band sticking out after or an area where it's extra weak. We can go back to the other side and same thing. We're getting only the bottom 2. Give it a stretch if it's hard to see there. I'm going to keep doing this from the side. It's a little easier for me to see. And we're doing the same thing. This is coming all the way up to the arm. Keep pushing back those extra bands, and we're going to reach under all the arm pieces and just get the bottom 2. Make sure at this point that you do get those center 2 bands up. And our collars are looped in already, so that's locked. The next thing we need to do is get our neck bands, and after this it should be a little bit easier. Push back everything else. And I'm actually going to give this a little tug so that it's clearer what I'm looking for. It might be easier for you just to get one of the bands at a time. That's quite alright. So as long as you have all of them by the time you're done. I was using 3, so I made sure that I had 3. We're coming under this neck peg, the 5th one down, and getting the top 2 bands, bringing them back to the far side that they came from. And our next 2 should be coming to the opposite side. And then we have 2 more that which go up. We'll do our sides now. So come under that 4th peg on the side, get your bottom 2 bands and bring them upwards. Push back all of our caps, and we'll keep going up right until we meet at the top. I think I only got 1 there. Yeah. As I said, it's a little tricky sometimes when they're all the same color because you have to look very closely to see which bands you're trying to get. We'll do the other sides, same thing. Just bring your bottom 2 bands up and stay inside your caps. So push back whenever you have an extra band on top. And we need to come up the center, make sure that your bands are snug on top as you go. I'm going to try and give the nose a little tug up right now so that it's kind of steady when we need it. We're going to get the next 2 and the next 2, And for our securing band, I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I'm going to try to come up. Here we go. We'll start the same way. We'll go through the bands on that top peg. We're going to bring a band through. But now what we do is we come back and grab the back piece. I don't want my band to come across like this. So I'm going to come under some of these. I'm going to grab the front band and pull it through. And then I can create a slip knot and bring one band over the other. Now here you'll probably want a second hook. We're going to get some of those tight pieces loose off of the pegs and carefully remove this from our loom. Some pieces, as I say, will be a little bit tighter and tougher than others. We don't want to break any bands, so take your time with this part as well, please. The neck is going to be especially hard, and your leg and arm pieces, so those are the ones I would definitely focus on when you're easing this off. There we go, the legs weren't so bad after all. Okay, we are gonna straighten everything out, give it a tug. If you have loose bands, we can stretch them out, like stretch them into place, or they can be woven in a little bit later. Pop your eyes through a little bit, adjust your shoulders as you need. We're gonna put a C-clip on that back securing band. You can make it fit it in a little tighter if you need. Mine is pretty tight already. Okay, we need some eyes. So I'm just going to take a Sharpie. Again, try and pop the eyes through as best you can. And you can draw your circles onto the eyes, keeping them as even as you can. And we're almost done. The only other thing is, if you would like your Tin Man to have a little red mouth, you're going to take a red band and we're just going to pop it through the face. So come in under the nose. There are 4 bands here. This is probably about the placement you'd like. We'll come back on the other side of those 4 bands. And bring your red back on top. Pull it through the back. You can put one end over the other and add a C-clip or connect it to your pre-existing C-clip. And we are done. Alright. Okay, there is your Tin Man. Thank you so much for watching. Please check out my Dorothy and some of my other rainbow loom patterns.